Hello everyone, my name is Peter Levi and I'm here with my colleague Sarah Budinis to talk about our technology roadmap on the global nitrogen fertilizer sector. Sarah and I are analysts at the International Energy Agency, or IEA, an intergovernmental organization established in 1974. I work in the Energy Technology Policy Division and Sarah works in the Carbon Capture, Utilization and Storage Unit. We both work on modeling and analysis associated with various aspects of the energy transition. Before we provide an overview of the project that we are here to talk to you about, we thought we'd give you a little bit of background on what the IEA is and what it does. The agency's original purpose was to help coordinate a collective response to major disruptions in the supply of oil. And while oil security remains a key aspect of our work, the IEA's mandate and global reach have expanded significantly since it was founded. The IEA has 30 member countries, shown on this slide. It is representatives from our member governments that comprise the foundation of our governance structure. In recent years, the IEA family has expanded to include 8 association countries. And beyond this, the IEA works with a whole host of other countries beyond its membership to gather data on energy supply and demand, which it compiles within its monthly and annual statistics. Taking an all fuels, all technologies approach, the IEA advocates policies that enhance the reliability, affordability, and sustainability of energy. We cover the full spectrum of issues facing various markets and technologies, including renewables, fossil fuels, nuclear energy, energy efficiency, clean energy technologies, electricity systems, energy access, demand-side management, and much more. We are sorry that we cannot be there with you today in person, but we would like to take this opportunity to provide an introduction to this project on nitrogen fertilizers, on which we are working closely with our colleagues at the International Fertilizers Association and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Now I'd like to pass over to Sarah, who will introduce the IEA Technology Roadmap series, of which the Nitrogen Fertilizer Technology Roadmap will form one installment.
Thank you, Peter. If we now focus on our technology roadmaps, they represent sector-focused low CO2 pathways. Overall, the International Energy Agency has produced a range of over 30 global technology roadmaps covering more than 20 of the key technologies for energy sector decarbonization, including industrial processes. The program has been a considerable success and has provided recognized guidance to the public and private sector due to its collaborative nature, evidence-based recommendation on the priorities and steps needed to accelerate technology innovation and deployment, and emphasis on broad stakeholder engagement. The aim of this workstream is to provide global technology roadmaps with regional context, long-term vision and near-term action supported by governments and key organizations, a closer look at implementation and how the roles of different technologies and stakeholders fit together, relevant indicators and metrics for tracking progress, and finally, provide strategic analysis directly relevant to multilateral efforts. When preparing a sector-specific roadmap, we want to understand first the current context, the status of the technology today, and the main alternatives in the short and long run. Moreover, we need to know which data are available and which data are needed. The second step focuses on assessing the technologies which have been identified in the previous step in order to characterize them from a techno-economic perspective and understand which challenges they may face and how competitive they are among themselves. Finally, we want to understand production technologies within the policy context in order to understand if and how they can play a role within the clean energy transition and which policy mechanism can boost the technology innovation towards a low-carbon future. As previously mentioned, the IEA focuses on all fuels and all technologies, and we adopt the same approach within our roadmaps, looking at a number of options for decarbonization. These options include energy efficiency achieved either through incremental reductions in energy intensity of a specific process or unit, or step changes achieved through switching to an alternative process route, material and application efficiency, which includes measures throughout the supply chain, including reducing yield losses, increasing the efficiency of material and chemical use, and extending the lifetimes of products. Switching to alternative fuels that can deliver a reduction in the emissions intensity per unit of energy supplied to a process. Innovative technologies, which refers to a portfolio that can deliver a step change in emissions intensity, but whether for technical or economic reason are not found at scale in the supply chain today. Another important component is the interaction among demand sectors and with the fuel transformation sector. Out of all the technology roadmaps which have been released so far, the industry-focused one covered chemicals and cement, while this year we will release a roadmap on global iron and steel, and this roadmap on nitrogen fertilizer will follow. Now I'm going to hand back over to Peter to provide a bit more information about the nitrogen fertilizer roadmap specifically.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah has described, the overarching reason for performing these analyses in our roadmaps is to take an in-depth look at how we can reduce emissions from various aspects of the energy system. The sectors and technologies that account for large shares of emissions today are particularly important. So if we look at the rationale for focusing on fertilizers and nitrogen fertilizers specifically, there are two key metrics to consider when looking at the broader context of industrial energy consumption and emissions. Ammonia, the precursor to all nitrogen fertilizers, can be used as a proxy to highlight the energy consumption of the nitrogen fertilizer subsector. On the left-hand chart on this slide, we have global industrial energy consumption with the key energy-intensive sectors identified individually. Chemicals, of which ammonia production is one part, is the largest industrial energy consumer at about 29% of the total. Because around 2/3 of this energy is consumed as feedstock, the chemical sector does not account for a proportional share of industrial emissions, rather a lower one at around 18%. Highlighting ammonia specifically, we can see that it accounts for around 5% of both industrial final energy consumption and CO2 emissions, and nearly 1/3 of all emissions from the chemical sector. For a single compound, this is a large contribution. It's important to clarify the boundary of our analysis. We are an energy-focused organisation, and although we are being supported by our colleagues at the IFA, we need to stay focused on the area in which we can offer expert insight. Our analysis will focus on the production of ammonia and urea and the direct emissions associated with producing these chemicals. We will cover all uses of these substances, including industrial uses, but we will not be looking at the emissions arising from their use or further transformation into derivative products. Our modelling framework sits within a broader energy modelling ecosystem, so interactions with other sectors, particularly the power and fuel transformation sector, will be analysed. But we will be focusing on the direct emissions from production and the technologies that will be playing a role in reducing them within the sector itself. This is not to say that we will not include some qualitative analysis of some of the downstream issues, particularly when they are intertwined with the technology implications from our analysis. We do not have time to go into today to go into the details of the modelling framework, but suffice to say we are reliant on your participation as energy sector experts and stakeholders to improve our input assumptions and review our findings. The strength of the Roadmap series is founded upon such interactions with the relevant communities in each sector or technology space. And to that end, we have released a modelling input review template to initiate a process of gathering feedback. This slide summarises some of the techno-economic information that we need to feed to our model. And as with all models, the better the input information, the better the results. These first three categories characterise the stock of equipment in the sector as it stands today, and also outlines our activity driver for the sector in the form of demand and production projections. These three categories of information we'll be working particularly closely with our colleagues at IFA to characterise. It is this fourth category associated with our technology model that has the input information that we would like to liaise with you and validate in this process. Examples of this information include information on energy intensity, material intensity, and then the investments in the form of CapEx and fixed OpEx associated with various technologies in the model. It's these parameters which drive the competitiveness of one option relative to another. So these are very important components of the modelling exercise that we'd like to validate with this community. So we strongly encourage you to engage with us via our colleagues at IFA as your schedules permit. We have already had very encouraging interactions with several stakeholders and hope to continue doing so. I'd like to conclude by just providing an overview of the key milestones of the project. We commenced with the kickoff meeting in Paris in September 2019 and have since conducted a number of regional workshops and conference calls with stakeholders. Throughout the rest of the year, we will continue building our network and gathering feedback, particularly on the review of the inputs to our modelling framework. Later this year or early next, there will be an opportunity to peer review the publication, but please do not wait until then to get in touch if you would like to participate in this project. Our colleagues Volker and Lucia at IFA will be happy to welcome you as an active stakeholder in the project. So that's it from us. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to be in touch with you in the coming months.